Did you know that the food you buy in America might be drastically different from what you would find in Europe? What if I told you that many of the foods Americans consume are actually banned or heavily regulated across the Atlantic? In today's video, we're diving into the topic of food regulations and why Europe has banned certain foods while Americans are still eating them. From imitation cheese to processed meats, many everyday foods are allowed in the US but could be considered illegal in Europe. Stick around as we explore the key differences in food safety standards between these regions and why they matter to us. Fake food. What is it? When we talk about fake food, we're referring to food products that look like the real deal but have been chemically or structurally altered. The goal? To make them cheaper, last longer, and be more marketable. Some familiar examples include pasteurized processed cheese, which isn't really cheese at all, non-dairy whip toppings, and imitation bacon bits. You might even be eating what you think is 100% cranberry juice, only to find that it's actually a blend with very little actual cranberry in it. While it may seem harmless, these imitations are often misleading, both in terms of taste and nutritional value. Now, part of the reason for these imitations is economic. Real maple syrup, for instance, is made from maple sap, but it takes over 40 gallons of sap just to produce a single gallon of syrup. That's why cheaper versions made from corn syrup or other additives flood grocery store shelves. But as convenient as these fake foods may be, they have a hidden cost, both in terms of our health and the food industry's impact on genuine, high-quality foods. Why are these foods allowed in the U.S.? In the U.S., the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, and the Food Safety and Inspection Service, FSIS, set regulations for food labeling, but the standards for what constitutes real food are much less strict compared to Europe. U.S. laws often focus more on consumer expectations and less on preserving the quality and authenticity of traditional foods. This has led to a situation where companies can use misleading labels and additives, creating cheap imitations that are passed off as the real thing. Take for example a lawsuit that was filed because the image on a Pop-Tart box made consumers think they were getting a lot more strawberry filling than they actually were. In a court ruling, the judge sided with the company, saying that no reasonable consumer would expect that much strawberry filling based on the label. This kind of legal loophole allows many products to be labeled misleadingly, leading to consumers consuming far more processed and synthetic ingredients than they realize. How did we end up here? After World War II, food companies started pushing for more convenient, ready-to-eat meals to accommodate the growing demands of busy workers. This led to the rise of processed foods, from frozen dinners to powdered eggs. But it wasn't an overnight transformation. Initially, these processed foods still resembled their traditional counterparts, like cheese, which had been made for thousands of years to help preserve milk. But over time, ingredients changed, and more chemicals were introduced to make food last longer, taste more consistent, and, most importantly, be cheaper to produce. Take Kraft's macaroni and cheese, for example. When it was first launched during the Great Depression, it had only a few ingredients, with real cheddar cheese as the star. By the 1980s, as cheese prices rose, Kraft began adding buttermilk powder and other substitutes to keep costs low. Fast forward to the 2000s, and the ingredients list is filled with more chemicals than actual dairy products. It's no longer just cheese and pasta. It's a processed meal. The European approach: protection through regulations. In contrast, Europe operates under what's known as the precautionary principle, which means that products must be proven safe before they're allowed on the market. This approach has kept many harmful chemicals and food additives out of the European food supply. For example, certain food colorings and preservatives used in American foods are banned in Europe because of potential health risks. Europe has strict regulations in place that protect the authenticity and heritage of foods, ensuring that traditional foods are produced in a way that preserves their cultural value. Take Parmesan cheese, for instance. In Europe, Parmesan can only be made in a specific region of Italy using traditional methods. The cows that produce the milk must be raised on pure pastures, and the cheese must be aged for at least 1 year before it's sold. In the US, however, there's no such standard. Many products labeled as Parmesan may not even be real cheese. They can contain wood pulp or other fillers, making them a far cry from the original. The EU's farm-to-fork strategy. The European Union has taken food regulation a step further with its farm-to-fork strategy, which aims to make food systems more sustainable, ethical, and transparent. This strategy includes measures to combat food fraud and ensure that food labeling is accurate and transparent. For example, in European grocery stores, you can often see exactly where each product comes from. Even the flour used to make my cake is labeled with the specific mill it was produced in. In the US, however, there's less emphasis on transparency. While the FDA has guidelines for food labeling, there's less regulation when it comes to how much of a product can be considered real. The European system creates a higher level of accountability for food producers, which ultimately benefits both consumers and local businesses. The battle over imitation foods. The problem with imitation foods in the US isn't just about misleading labels. It's also about the impact on small-scale producers and the authenticity of the food. In many cases, smaller producers who create high-quality, traditional foods can't compete with the mass-produced, cheap imitations. For example, small-scale Parmesan producers in Italy are struggling to maintain their market share when cheaper, lower-quality Parmesan cheeses flood the US market. As a result, the real stuff becomes harder to find and more expensive for the average American consumer. When you choose imitation over the real thing, it's not just your taste buds that suffer. It's also the livelihoods of those who dedicate their lives to creating authentic, high-quality food. The cheap imitations that dominate US grocery store shelves are often produced by large corporations, and they come at the cost of food quality and local food systems. Change on the horizon. Despite the current state of affairs, there is growing awareness in the US about the health risks associated with processed foods. Consumers are becoming more conscious of what they're eating, leading to the rise of clean label products in grocery stores focused on whole, healthy foods. However, these options come at a price. Healthier foods are often more expensive, and for many families, processed foods are simply more affordable. In fact, a report from the Food Foundation found that healthy food is usually twice as expensive as less healthy alternatives when measured on a per-calorie basis. The rising costs of healthier food options are a significant barrier for many Americans, leading them to opt for processed foods despite the long-term health risks. Studies show that poor diets contribute to rising healthcare costs in the US, with unhealthy eating habits resulting in an additional $50 billion in medical expenses each year. These costs are ultimately passed on to consumers through higher insurance premiums and out-of-pocket expenses. So, why are Americans still eating these foods when Europe has banned or regulated them? It all comes down to a combination of factors: weaker food safety regulations, consumer demand for cheaper options, and corporate influence over food production. While Europe has set higher standards to protect both consumers and food heritage, the US continues to allow imitation foods to flood the market. But there is hope on the horizon. As more Americans become aware of the risks associated with processed foods, there's a growing demand for transparency and higher quality ingredients. Whether the US will follow Europe's lead in tightening food regulations remains to be seen, but one thing is clear: consumers have the power to make change. The next time you pick up a bottle of maple syrup or a wedge of Parmesan, ask yourself, is this really what it claims to be? Let me know in the comments below if you've ever been surprised by a fake food product. If you found this video helpful, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more insightful content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.